All right, Jim, I am coming to you first. There has been a lot of communication, NIL, then you're hearing this word around collective, players getting paid. I would like to get paid, but I don't think we are aware that there is a difference between NIL and collective. And so could you just give us a basic understanding on why there is a difference and then how they both function when it pertains to athletes negotiating deals?
Yeah, so NIL is here because of a guy named Ed O Bannon. Ed O Bannon was a basketball player in the 90s who ended up suing the NCAA in the late 2000s and finally won in 2015. And he won over the improper use of his name, image, and likeness being in a college basketball video game made by EA Sports, where the players' likenesses were in the game, but the players weren't getting paid. And so that case was decided in 2015. But the leaders in college athletics didn't want to make it a legal rule, and so they were forced to in 2021 through several other court cases. And when that happened in 2021, the biggest fear of college athletics was that college athletes would become employees. And so to disguise performance pay, the college athletics world has used name, image, and likeness as a way to pay players really for playing quarterback, not for what name, image, and likeness is really meant for, which is to endorse a brand with your name, image, and likeness, right? So the delineation would be Patrick Mahomes makes money with his name, image, and likeness through the State Farm deal that we all watch with his commercials. But Patrick Mahomes also makes money from the Kansas City Chiefs to play quarterback through his performance deal with the Kansas City Chiefs that gives them a base salary and incentives for throwing a certain amount of touchdowns and getting to a certain round of the playoffs. Well, in college sports, there is no delineation. Everything is NIL, but really 90% of the money being paid to players is actually to play their position. And there's a lot of danger in that because what you really have is donors laundering money through a collective, which is a shell company that has a relationship with the school, to be able to pay those players and get them to go play there, right? So every donor wants the best players to go to Alabama or Tennessee or whatever their school is, and so they're using NIL as a way to make that happen. But the problem is they're not employees. So what does that mean? Well, first off, the athletes aren't getting paid with a W-2, which means their taxes aren't withheld, right? So now you're getting all your money, and you got to be smart enough to know how much to save and how to actually do your taxes at the end of the year. Another big issue is these are endorsement deals. Really, it's performance deals, but it's being disguised as endorsement deals because of that fear I mentioned by the schools of the athletes being employees. And so what happens is the agents are charging endorsement rates to their athletes to do the deals, which is 20%. Jeez. Whereas in pro sports, Patrick Mahomes' quarterback deal, his agent's only taking 3%, right? So there's another 17% being given away to the agents. And there's a lot of other pitfalls that come with it as well. But the biggest problem, if you remember nothing else, is that we're disguising performance-based pay to play your position on the field or court. We're disguising it as NIL, and it's creating a lot of issues for athletes that are going to be seen more and more as time goes on.
Right. That's really good distinction because I was not aware of that. I just thought it was the same pot of money and you pay me to score touchdowns and do the Tootsie Roll in the end zone. Now, Corey, you have a very unique perspective when it pertains to this shifting evolution around NIL policy, infrastructure. All right. So knowing the role that you play at Sanford, there has been some recent hires when you think about the coaches. The head basketball coach, I'm a former Sanford Bulldog, so shout out Sanford. Head basketball coach, and there's a few other hires that's on the horizon. How much has the NIL world impacted the process that colleges and universities go through when selecting a coach to represent their team?
I don't think it's a part of the process that it has not impacted, not just for the coaches, but the players. So we had a pretty successful coach that took a job that we wasn't necessarily expecting to happen that quickly. And if I can give you a timeline, we found out on a Friday that it was a serious ordeal. Saturday morning, I'm on a call with the president and the AD thinking about candidates and what's our next step. Sunday, we're interviewing people. Monday, we're interviewing people. And Monday night, we name a coach. And the reason we had to expedite that process is because I had to call all of our players and try to talk them out of jumping in the portal. So everything that we did, the speed that we took to that process was really to retain players and to calm down the uncertainty of who the next coach is. I would submit that the NIL is not even a performance-based payment. It's a recruiting war treasure chest. Everybody wants to win the recruiting war. Yeah. And so what you have is a lot of upfront angst, a lot of upfront movement, but we have to talk to our coaches about, the question is, what does the NIL pot look like? Even at a Sanford, at a mid-major. And so, look, it's a real thing. No coach feels like they can compete without being able to go out and offer this new benefit to players. It puts tremendous strain on the resources and the finances of a college athletic department, but it certainly expedited the process of us identifying a coach, getting comfortable enough to hire a coach, expediting the announcement of the coach, so that it can calm down the players, the parents, the agents, and everybody of the players that we already had on our roster to keep them from jumping in the portal and going somewhere else. So NIL was, everything about the process, and it's everything about decision-making now if you want to, have a competitive team.
Right. I want you to stay right there for a little bit, Corey. I'm actually going to come back to Jim and Corey on this. What is the business model for colleges and universities when it pertains to sports? And I want to hear that.
Oh, you about to open up a can, Coop. So as I mentioned, I came from banking, financial services. I was a commercial banker here in town for Regions. And when I got to the university and the role that I have, which is all about revenue and business, I was kind of shocked at looking at the statements, the financial statements. It's not a well-run business. Athletics generally cost university more so than they make money for a university. So the misunderstanding is that the school is making all this money off of players. That's not true. The school is actually losing money on athletic departments. There are only 2 sports in all of college athletics that really make money. That's men's basketball and football. And those are generally through TV contracts for football and the NCAA tournament for basketball. So when you think about what's out there and what the noise is about the opportunity to make money, please understand that even for the big Power 5 SEC schools, they generally are losing money on their athletic department. And so when we take that into account, and now you're saying the money that we did not have to pay these players that we spent on infrastructure, resources, facilities, training staffs, all this kind of stuff, now we have to take some of that money and pay a player who hasn't necessarily brought a new dime to our pot. And that's hard to hear, man, but that's the fact. There is no college that's really benefiting from a single player coming there.